+1 to your Traveling Merchant if you get it in that hand as well. 0 mana card you can play on the same turn as a Wriggling Horror to be able to buff them up. They have so many different applications in this deck, even if you draw them without the Gambling, which is, you know, historically there's always been these kind of decks being flirted with around in the metagame, where there's been various reasons where people have convinced themselves that playing 0 mana 1/1s, which have always been a factor in Hearthstone all the way back to the OG Wisp, never forget. People have always had that idea of, oh, maybe we just play 0 mana 1/1s in our deck, and it's never quite got there because there's only really been 1 or 2 powerful purposes in your deck that you can really do with the card. But in this particular deck, there's just so many things that a 0 mana 1/1 is useful for. I haven't even mentioned the one which is get it out of your hand for 0 mana so you can play Voracious Reader or a Lucia and then win the game on the spot.
And there's also another one with the fact that the issue with 0-cost cards and, say, wanting them in your mulligan is that your hand is empty very quick. But with, obviously, Raised Dead and Twilight Deceptor to get Raised Dead, then you can do that, you know, enough hand refill for a hyper aggro deck to be worthwhile, right? You're putting on board pressure and you can generate those minions back again and replay them the same turn, no matter what. So, yeah, really big deal there. And we'll see if Bunnyhoppor can get a little bit more success out of the Shadow Priest than his counterpart did in the previous matchup.
Interesting turn already for Thijs. True Aim Crescent always makes you consider various strange options as to how a curve plans out, because obviously if you intend to hit minions with the weapon, that's usually considered an upside. But sometimes, because of the sequence of minions that you've played out, and the minions generally attack in play order, it can be a downside for you, right? Because you generally will want to protect a particular minion in a lot of spots. And won't be able to do that if you play it on board first before something else. But that's why I think we just saw Thijs take a moment and consider, and I think generally that will be the pattern between this matchup and comparing it to the one that we saw previously, which was identical in terms of decks. There will be a lot more just taking a moment to consider various options on both sides.
And I like this play here from Bunnyhoppor, just max tempo, max aggro. He has a Raised Dead and he has a Twilight Deceptor to fish for the other Raised Dead. It's ticking all the boxes to the pre-start you really want. I think the only thing he would really look for is like a buff minion or just one of the 1-drops with high health, right? Just to be a little bit more sticky on board. Again.
Lethal?
Well, I'm trying to think here. Does he actually Raise Dead? Deal 1 to face fine. Play Twilight Deceptor, Raise Dead again to get 2 0-drops. Play them and then double Attendant next turn? Or triple Attendant next turn?
Yeah, I think that's very possible. Obviously, there's a slight downside with doing it this way, whereas you're putting 0 mana 1/1s in play, which are going to get hit by the weapon, and then will only deal 1 damage instead of 2 because you haven't played a Void Touched Attendant. But I still think it's probably the best way to go about doing it overall.
And the thing is, right, the tall guy can get hit by the weapon anyway. Like, one of them dies, but the other 2 don't. So you're still ahead. Oh, it is beautiful, honestly. Like, triple Void Touched on curve.
On curve, yeah. This is how I normally curve out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. This is how you climb out of Dumpster Legend. So powerful. It's not even just this next turn's worth of damage. You can see the removal on one minion, the swing of the weapon into the other. Yeah, Void Touch doesn't look too great. But it's not just about next turn. It's about the fact that there's 3 1/3s that Thijs has to kill or he will just die.
Bunny, I know that's a good draw. I know it's very tempting.
Yeah, touch that horror.
But triple Void Touched is objectively funnier, and that's what matters.
Must consider.
Put that horror back. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, this is what we live for.
Yeah. That's the good stuff.
Look at Thijs' face. He's like, okay. Oh, okay.
He just took 8!
Who needs giants?
Wait a minute.
Wait, is it lethal with explosive trap?
Let none survive.
I mean, he's just dead, isn't he? Quick shots one. Bone Chew, I imagine the trade goes in with the weapon, right? He can afford to.
Yeah, he'll take 3 more, obviously, from smacking in. With 2 still alive. No way around it, really.
But now the Wriggling Horror hero power follow-up is fantastic.
Exactly.
Make that a 1-4. Tour Guide gets to push, what, 2-3 damage this turn?
Mm-hmm.
That's 8. Andy faces down an absolutely empty board.
Who's Andy? I think biggest point of consideration is just exactly where the buffs go, right? Does he want 2/2s? Does he want a 2/4 and a 2/2?
Yeah, I guess the way I'd look at it is the 1/3 he wants to give a buff to, right? Because at the moment it dies to another quick shot.
Mm-hmm.
So make it only die to something big. My view as well is that because the 1/1s can die to the weapon swing, yes, they can, so this stops that. But they would be pushing damage anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like, it would do a good enough damage. I guess the reason here is this puts the most wide damage on, and if he trades into the 2/1, it leaves everything else on board. Yeah, there's a lot to consider there, actually. It was a little bit more complicated than I was giving it credit for. As long as the hero powers first, he's fine. Sets up lethal. Doesn't even have to attack.
Just don't even attack, yep. No reason to. I mean, there's also no reason not to.
Yeah.
I'm very confident this is 100% one either way, right?
What if there's reverse lethal because he left the void touched on the board?
Yeah. It's likely.
Oh, well, yeah, you just swing in case it's not explosive, right? Because the other side doesn't matter.
That's a very good reason to do it, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Just in case it's not, like, and if it is, you've won. I'm actually a little bit surprised Thijs is even still in the game right now. There we go. The concede there. Bunnyhoppor with the strongest opening I've seen from Priest in a long time. The old triple void touched on 3. You know, that old chestnut there for Bunnyhoppor. Gets off to a quick win, 1-0 with the Priest. And let me just check already. The series is different, Sol, because RDU won the Hunter as the Hunter versus the Priest in the previous series. So things could change.
They could, absolutely, yeah, and I think it changes the dynamic enormously, right? Because I was talking about this before, how after game 1, Casey had the counter queue with the Quest Shaman, which was fine. However, now Thijs has a potential counter queue with the Fell Demon Hunter, which is a little bit weaker against Priest than it is against Face Hunter, I would say, overall. But still one of the absolute best matchups that exists in the metagame overall. A little bit weaker again now that people have moved towards I-Beams and away from Chaos Leech, because I think like Moog Chaos Leech just deleted basically any aggro deck just because of the sheer amount of healing that it output. But still, this is a very, very good matchup. Absolutely no surprise. I don't look at the tracking sheet, so I didn't know what the queue was going to be, but this is just the way Last Hero Standing works, right? The deck stays on, you have what you have to queue into it, and for Thijs, I think it's a very, very easy position to go with the Fell Demon Hunter here, and I would expect, in most worlds, this series to be squared up.
And just to touch on your point as well about the difference in a lot of decks running I-Beam now instead of the other options is some of the bigger Priest minions, especially the Ganling, are that much more difficult to clear off now if you aren't running the Chaos Leech. I'm just making up a name of a card, I think. Okay, cool. So yeah, there is those small differences, but in general, I do agree that like this is kind of the matchup the deck's built for, right? Those minion-focused board, like early game matchups where as long as you don't completely whiff on your removal, there should be enough to get done. And I think most importantly versus Priest, the deck has heal. Because even if you can clear the board versus Priest, if you can't actually heal up, you might still be in danger.
And that's kind of also what I'm getting at with Chaos Leech, right? It's like, yes, there's traveling merchants and Gandlings that sometimes you need a little bit more than the I-beams to deal with. But sometimes you just kill a 1/1 with it and heal for 5, you know, and just feel amazing about it. Like, it's just so much healing to secure your position in this particular matchup. But I think the go-to card in any anti-aggro matchup is that Immolation Aura. Thijs holding onto it, but he also throws away Warblades, which I am extremely surprised about, because I personally in this matchup feel that if I can get my hands on Warblades early, I'm feeling very, very secure.
Maybe he's worried about Warblades versus 3 Void Touched on turn 3 doesn't do much.
It doesn't line up that well, actually, now you mention it.
Just going off what he's learned in the previous game.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, though, I am a little bit surprised, but I guess one of the things is if you draw Warblades, is it alone enough, or are you then relying on further draws to help it? And maybe just wants to get to more spot removal, like I-beams and AoE.
So here, I like that question, but I would answer that question by flipping it on its head and asking you the opposite question. Is if you don't have Warblades, is drawing Fury and Chaos Strike good enough? Because that's the way I look at it. I think having Warblades already in your hand activates a good portion of your deck from mediocre cards to very, very good anti-aggro cards because you have a Warblades equipped.
I like that question, but I've got another question for you. What if you just draw Eldrazi Warblades and get a Chaos Leech anyway and completely nullify everything we've been talking about?
Well, then I can answer your question with one more question, which is, can you imagine being Thijs?
Damn it, my answer's just no. You win this round. I've also found in this matchup as the Priest, Elucia feels harder to be successful with because you don't often have enough of a board consistently to say, okay, I Elucia and I win next turn because you cannot answer, because your board I feel never even gets threatening enough any one given turn in the game.
Yeah, I completely agree. Elucia in this matchup is a rare breed in the current metagame. It's an Elucia that's actually sometimes used to steal cards from your opponent, which, believe it or not, doesn't happen anymore. Elucia is just 3 mana, I win the game. That's what the card does now. But in this matchup, I think there are mistakes that your opponent can make, which allows you access to very powerful things from their hand. That can be discounted Skull cards, it can be Metamorphosis, it can be Fel Barrage, it can be all kinds of things that can end up being additional damage for you.
I've got a new question.
Yes.
Are you telling me Elucia does not steal quest rewards?
No.
All the time?
No, it doesn't. Weirdly enough, losing the game on turn 5 and losing your quest reward to a Mindrender Elucia are impossible things to reconcile in the same metagame, so I'm sorry. One of you's lying.
Well, this turn looks fairly simple to me. Hero Power Toll Guide for Bunnyhoppor, and we might even see just a Gandling on curve from him next turn if there's nothing else on offer.
Yeah.
Already, it's looking pretty grim. I think I would have loved to see like a Wriggling Horror at some point in the near future, just to build up this board a little bit.
Yeah, even a Raised Dead, right? Because there's
sure.
potential that he'll be able to like Raised Dead a Tiny Fin or something to be able to go along with his Gandling turn, which gives him a decent refill once this board goes down. And I do say once this board goes down as if it's an inevitability, because it generally is against Demon Hunter.
Yeah, already, even if it was just Immolation or a Hero Power, the majority of the board's gone this turn. But Thijs, I think quite rightly, holding on to the big AoE for when he really needs it. One thing that I've run into a couple of times is the AoE comes out from the Demon Hunter, then you play Gandling Raised Dead and a few minions, and they cry a little bit because they've just used their Immolation Aura.
Yeah, it's very fair.
Crazy to still want to play Gandling.
Must consider.
Risky,
follow up next turn. Your follow up at that point is probably going to be like Wriggling Horror plus your top deck, right? So which could be a variety of different things. You are trusting in your draw a little bit, because obviously if you draw like Voracious Reader at that point, you're not exactly delighted with the way your hand looks.
Yeah, I just think because the matchup's hard. Do you just take the risk, right? Do you just throw Gandling out and say, you know, if they don't kill it, I'm way ahead. If they do kill it, well, Are they going to kill it and clear the board? Maybe, but that should be a lot of resources. And then try and rebuild from there. It's tough, though. I don't begrudge this turn from Bunnyhoppor. Even now with that Chaos Leech, I don't think Thijs has to be that afraid of this board yet.
Not particularly, no.
As long as he's counting Void Touch damage, he'll be fine, I think.
Yeah, counting Void Touch damage and counting Elucia damage, right? You don't accidentally want to get into that position where you're facing down, you know, you have twice as much health as there is on board, which means you're dead against Priest. Yeah. Oh, there it is.
That'll do.
That's the juice.
1 mana to spare as well, so he gets away with a 1-drop. Okay. Still good, though. And he, like I said, right after the Immolation Aura, which is the best time to play a Gunling.
And I think, just going back to that AoE turn from Thijs, like, yes, I would call that a slightly liberal use of an AoE in this matchup. However, he saw a 4-mana turn, which was 2 mana spent, right? So I think at that point, you're starting to think about what cards are in hand that he's not playing, and you probably start thinking about Mind Render Elucia as one of them, right? So then suddenly leaving up that amount of damage, say a Wriggling Horror gets drawn, or say a Void Touched Attendant gets drawn, and then it's just a big buff and Elucia turn, and then you are sad and dead in equal quantities.
And honestly, because I played both sides of this a lot, the second you stop thinking about it, you lose. So it is important to keep that keep the old eye on it.
The old eye.
Yep. Thijs just having to let Ganling just chill, do what he wants.
How much is this now? This gets buffed up. So we're pushing 9. We have another 4/4 in play. That 4/4 is dead to the minion on the other side. And unfortunately, drew not a minion this turn, which makes this a little bit more awkward. If that was anything except the Dormant, I suppose if it was a 1 mana, if it was a Tour Guide or something, he would have been in a really good position to go for it. Still kind of is,
yeah,
right?
what if you just go for it anyway?
The Elucia dies and turns into a 4/4 anyway.
Yeah.
So you would put your opponent to 12 and be showing 13. Yeah, this is just a lethal setup, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because the Elucia is equal to the Felgorger, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just damage on board now. Looks pretty good to me.
Yep. I like it.
Take an Ed from Thijs.
Blast the Fel Scream while you are here. Boop. Push the 9. That's exactly what I was talking about. Generally doesn't happen in this matchup. 3 mana you don't get to play anymore. We're not playing Hearthstone, I just win. But that's the reality of what's ended up happening here for Thijs, unfortunately.
A fine purchase.
Yeah, like I said, I just... The Ganling just was perfect, honestly. The Raised Dead helped Bunnyhoppor a lot, of course, but being able to put enough pressure on to force out AoE and then Ganling and just say, well, do you have exactly like what Moarg into another Immolation Aura? Like, unlikely at best. So, yeah, really good push there from Bunnyhoppor. The Elucia to cap it off, of course. And now he's just going to go to a, especially for Bunnyhoppor, a rapid 2-0 lead in this series. Priest doing work, just like it was doing, at least from the bit of APAC I got to watch. I was a bit busy this morning, apologies. But I saw Priest doing some work in APAC as well this morning, so...
And this is the turn, right? This is the one that we have to think about, was that Immolation Aura necessary? You were just saying going into that turn that, you know, I don't really think Thijs needs to be too concerned about this board, and I gave you reasons why you could be concerned about it, but I do also agree with the sentiment that, you know, Immolation Aura, I make this point in the Shaman matchup all the time, Immolation Aura is more valuable than your health by a lot, by a large factor. It's less true, I would say, in Shadow Priest because you do have to be scared of those Void Touched Attendant outs and Elucia outs, which I think is what Thijs was considering. But again, he kind of left himself in that sticky situation where if we're talking about the dynamic of, okay, he had 2 cards in his hand, he didn't play them, he floated 2 mana. Yes, they could have been Elucia. They couldn't have been Void Touched, right? Void Touched, I think, would have been played and damage would have been pushed that turn almost immediately.
I think that's fair, yeah.
but they also could have been Gandling, right? That's also something that you have to think about in that position, and then giving up your Immolation Aura does get punished by one side of that equation. So I think it's a really hard choice for Thijs to make on that turn with that AoE.
Yeah, really tough indeed. We've all been there. And now we are going to move on to the next game. Thijs going to be on his Garrote Rogue. Once again, just a quick highlight on that one of Broom in the list. Probably not going to be too much of a factor in this specific matchup. But if Thijs grabs the win, maybe it's going to have more impact going forward. But what do you make of this one? Is Rogue actually too fast?
Wait. Rewind. Is it not going to have a colossal impact in this particular matchup? Isn't Broom the absolute nuts?
I'm a moron. For some reason, I thought Thijs was playing Rogue, and Bunnyhoppor just started playing Thijs' Demon Hunter. So I'm just talking about the wrong matchup. I apologize greatly.
To remind everyone at home that we are on a last hero standing week of Grandmasters.
And Bunny doesn't just get to play Thijs' other decks.
And we are not playing the format where you just swap decks with your opponent at the end of the game. But I know some of you do get confused because of the alternating formats. People do get confused as to why the same deck is appearing over and over again. This is last hero standing. Winning deck stays on, and that means that the opponent gets to counter queue. So yeah, we'll be seeing Shadow Priest again from Bunny going up against the Rogue. And would you like to revise your statement about animated Broomstick?
Yeah, so that Broom is just drawn probably pretty good in a minion-focused early game deck, and not Demon Hunter. So yes, Broom, big deal. This is one of the matchups where you definitely see the value. And speaking of value, it's a heck of a turn one, Sol.
This deck, it's
great.
So stupid.
In the best of ways, though, isn't it?
Sure, let's go with that.
In more serious notes, do you like the Elucia keep here from Bunny?
Yes. Yeah, 100%. He kept it alongside Void Touched, right? I didn't pay 100.
I think it was a solo keep.
Oh, okay. That's a little bit more.
That's kind of why I was. That's why it was more brought to my attention, because I'm.
Okay.
Could be wrong based off what I just tried to talk about a few minutes ago, but I'm pretty sure it was a solo keep Elucia.
I do think that's more debatable, but I have still been tending to do that when I play the deck myself in quite a few matchups. Like, Elucia's just broken. Like, it's just what it is. It's just the best card in the deck by a mile, and it can do things that no other card in your deck and no other card in the entire game in any class can do, and I think it's worth just having access to it every single game.
I think as well, in this matchup, even though it's not normally the main thing you try to do, the benefit is it's very easy to throw away key Rogue cards because they're normally cheap, and Rogue's normally holding a lot of cards, right, if they're doing anything good. So it has that extra benefit as well.
That's the downside, though, is that sometimes you just don't get the curve that you would have been wanting here for Bunny. Interesting turn as well from Thijs, because he had the option, even there on turn one, to commit his Broom to deal with the board state, right? Like we could have been looking at even like Coin, Broom, Prize Plunderer to clear up the entirety of the board, but Thijs chose to hold back and slow play it just a little bit, which I do respect.
Yeah, and even though that draw from Bunnyhoppor was by no means a good draw, he at least had the hero power option, right, to just clear off the minion that Thijs chose to play and carry on with his day. So the only weird thing is his next draw, I feel, has to be very good, because the hero power again, or to just play like a 2 drop next turn, is going to feel very slow. Especially with this 1-1 being cleaned up.
Boy, that's a lot of damage.
2 more 1-1s! He raised deads and passes, right? And hero power, sorry, not pass.
Okay.
Handling double 4/4s? Like...
But also, yes, in direct answer to your question, yes, I think the Raised Dead is being played for 1-1s and you are holding on to them. However, is there something else that you might be able to do this turn? Because you can just play the Mind Render Elucia, right? And just go for it this way.
Is this good enough?
This was my hesitation to your question. Well, you know you get coin, right? This is the thing. You're also playing additional minions from your opponent's hand. So you are betting on the fact that you are getting a 1-mana card from their deck in play as well to be able to push additional damage. They get to do probably absolutely nothing on the following turn because you've given them a 4-mana card. And you get to disrupt all of the stuff that they've been holding on to in the early game plus their coin. In what world is that not good enough, Raven?
Okay.
You're not convinced, are you?
No. I can definitely. I mean, you can see the merits in front of you, right? If you open your eyes, you can see the merits of this play. You don't need me to explain it. I guess because it's just not a play I would have made. It's more interesting to me. Just not a 0-drop though, is it, Sol? It can't be played with Ganling.
It is not a 0-drop indeed, but it is infinity damage.
So much. And you are right, Bunnyhoppor managed to basically gut Thijs' hand, where, okay, nice, you've got your field contact. Enjoy your field contact plunderer on 4 mana. You know, like, what's that going to do?
Too quiet. Give me that.
Find out
This was my hesitation, right? Because when you started off saying, okay, raise dead for 2 minions, I'm like, yeah, okay, that probably happens. But there's a lot of other ways to go about that turn. You could have held on to them, gone with the Elucia, done the disruption stuff that you did on the other side, but then still had the potential on the following turn. You could have not played the Raise Dead and done the same thing, because then it doesn't matter that you're flipping to the other side. They can't play your Raise Dead because they haven't had any minions die yet at that point, I think. Maybe there was an Ethereal Org Merchant, actually, that would have happened, that would have disrupted it. I think all things considered, Bunny's line was the only one that made complete sense in terms of locking the game, because... Sorry, just against Rogue in particular, you don't need 2-turn lethal with Elucia, right? If you deal 22 damage over the course of 2 turns with your Elucia, that's lethal, because you will ping them before they're able to do anything to play.
Especially if you can dump cards, right?
Yes, exactly.
And like I said, I honestly didn't really factor in the coin into the equation, and I was so focused on just going like Ganling 0-drop, then Elucia the turn after, with the assumption they're not going to clear, 14 power off the board in 1 turn on turn 3 or whatever it was? Turn 4. But yeah, you are completely right. A great spot from you, great spot from Bunnyhoppor there with that approach, and it paid off massively. Bunnyhoppor getting the victory with a smooth 3-0 with Shadow Priest. Something we don't see a lot from historically from Bunnyhoppor is in playing one of, if not the most aggressive deck in the game right now. It's kind of cool to see. Probably the quickest series Bunnyhoppor's ever been involved in. But you know, a huge win there, and again, just continuing for Bunnyhoppor to have a great season so far.
And I'll tell you a little story, Raven. Back in the day, there was a game called Super Turbo, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. It's one of the greatest fighting games of all time. It was redesigned and updated to an HD edition, where Akuma, who was a character that was historically massively broken, was rebalanced to the point where the developer said he should be tournament legal now. He should be playable. He should be fine.
Wasn't he the secret character?
He was originally the secret character in Street Fighter 2, yes. He was designed to be a playable, tournament-viable character back then. There was a player called Damdai who went, no, this character's still completely broken. No one believed him. So he entered a major tournament with Akuma and absolutely rinsed everyone with the broken Akuma and got Akuma rebanned. That is what you just watched there. That was an exhibition of why Mindrender Elucia is not okay in any world. Thank you, Bunnyhoppor, for doing the work we all needed.
I am glad you circled back, because I thought I had to rein you in on just talking about FGC for the next 3 hours, just because we've had a quick day. So I'm glad you circled back, Sol, but let's have a quick look here on what this top 8 looks like. Gabby versus Letter for match 1. Felkane versus Bunnyhoppor in match 2. One player in dire need of points, and the other player doing pretty well this season. Psycho versus Floki, and finally Frenetic versus Casey. I think Casey's already tweeted, finally broke the curse of him bombing out on the first day on stream every week. So, you know, great job for him, and a great job for all these players, honestly. I think this is going to be a really good push for a lot of these to gain points or further secure their positions on the leaderboard. And we're getting to that point, like we said at the